Since you're a socialist, can I have money? You know what? You can have money when we achieve the revolution, friend. You can do that, okay? Um, by the way, do you know what being a socialist means? What does socialism mean to you? Okay, I would like you to describe what you think socialism means, because so far every person who has acted like the way you've acted when they've come into chat to talk about socialism has tried to define it. They've done a really piss poor job. So I would like you to surprise me, please. Redistributed wealth among people with big government and social programs. Wrong. Uh, Socialism consists of two main factors. One is the worker control over the means of production, and two is the decommodification of at least some aspects of the market. Now, to achieve one, we already have a system of business that currently exists in the United States that does have worker control over the means of production, and it is worker co ops. And worker co ops have historically been more efficient and effective than traditional business structures. So, my proposal is to have a system by which we can transition from private businesses to worker co-ops for our main businesses. Well, for example, Ocean Spray, it's a $2 billion company, the Cranberry Company. That is a worker co-op. And they also invented juice boxes. So a juice box, like if you have a juice box, if your kids drink juice boxes or whatever, um, a worker co-op invented those, and it's been around for like 100 years. So like worker co-ops are actually one of the benefits of them is that they are extremely resilient, so they last for a very long time, and they are able to weather poor economic conditions. And then they're also more efficient and more productive, and they have happier and better paid workers than traditional companies. Um, so that's what I advocate for on that front. And as for decommodification, did you know that, for example, if you provide homes to people who are homeless, that actually saves society a net amount of money? Those are the positions that I advocate for. Decommodifying things like homes, water, food, electricity, internet, all the things you need to live like a productive life in a modern society. I don't think socialism doesn't work because in every country it doesn't work as it leads to fascism. The government will always be corrupt. Well, the thing is, friend, like the most powerful and rich countries are capitalist. That's true. That is true. The most powerful and rich countries are capitalist. However, I think that we can be a market socialist society. And in a market socialist society, we would have more efficient and effective companies via worker co ops. We would actually be producing more and generating more wealth with worker co ops than we currently do. And the other aspect is that if we decommodified like things like healthcare and housing, we would actually be saving society even more money, and that we could use to be more productive and wealthy. So my positions actually all advocate for a wealthier, more productive society than a traditionally capitalist country. And they can all be achieved without sacrificing the standard of living we have now. Um, Also, socialism is a leftist proposition. Fascism is a far right position. They are not compatible, really. Ashley seems to be somewhat of a swing voter who agrees with lots of the tenets of socialism. And you know what? I'm here for it. If Ashley wants to embrace socialism, I who am I to turn away a comrade who is coming in good faith? CNN is bullshit, same as Fox. Well, that actually has nothing to do with what I was talking about. Honestly, if you have problems with CNN and Fox because they're both run by large billionaires and millionaires, um, welcome to the resistance, comrade. Because yeah, I'm not a huge fan of CNN or Fox either. I believe we should transition to worker-owned media companies as well. True, Biden didn't look old as dirt, but Trump looked like literal aged shoe leather on stage. So in comparison, Biden looked a youthful 72. You know, why is worker owned better? Well, because all the data we have on worker owned co ops that compares them to privately owned companies shows that worker co ops are more efficient and more productive. The workers are happier, the workers are higher paid, and they are better able to survive harsh economic conditions, which means that they have a longer longevity, which means that they are able to, over time, generate more and more wealth and invest more and generally be a larger benefit to the wider economy. Yeah, turns out when you have happier workers, people tend to want to work more. Um, what countries have that? Well, no countries have that, friend. The closest might be Cuba, but even Cuba, like, falls far short of this. But that's why I'm advocating for small incremental changes so that we can transition the US to that over time. All of my positions are largely based on, facts and data rather than like how I feel things should be done. You know, um, they're pretty reasonable positions, I think. Who do I really think is gonna win? Flats Crusher. I think Biden is gonna win. Like if I was a betting type, I would put money on Biden. Um, there isn't enough incentive in socialism as well as the government having too much power. Well, in my system, the government doesn't have any power because it doesn't have more power. It actually has like less power over your life. You actually have a greater degree of freedom in a market socialist society. You see, the issue is the incentive in a market socialist society is shifted from you either work or you die to you pursue what you are interested in and what you are passionate about, and you can put your energy towards that rather than like spending your days mechanically flipping a burger because uh, in a worker co-op society, like no one would have a problem with adapting to like robotic technology to do those jobs. Um, what you're passionate about doesn't mean you're good at it. Yeah, but in a market socialist society, you could put in the time to get better at doing that thing. Um, and the other issue is that in a market socialist society, not all things are free. So there would still be luxury goods. So like while basic food supplies would be decommodified, which means like if you need bread, you can go to a like your local um general store or whatever and you can just pick up a loaf of bread and leave and that's fine. Um that's what decommodification would mean. Uh, Whereas if you wanted like a box of Pop Tarts, you would have to go to like a luxury grocery store to pick that up, and that would cost you money. So like the market socialist society would have a an incentive in that you would be going after luxury goods with money rather than the goods you need to live. You know, if people get basic needs for free, they won't work as hard and be more greedy about their stuff. Actually, the data we have on this shows that people work harder when they have their basic needs met. That it turns out people people will actually work harder when they have like when they actually want to work rather than being forced to work. Wait, I didn't want that. Basic needs. Well, okay. So like here is a an article about you know management. So there is a movement within like businesses where businesses are incentivized to maximize employee health. And health also includes employees being happy. So employees who are happy and healthy work harder than employees who are unhappy and not healthy. So that's the issue. Like, even in a traditionally capitalist society, we recognize these things as being needs for a productive society. The issue is we tend to have these needs existent in a capitalist system that makes employees need that puts employees in the position of needing to pay to be both healthy and happy. And if we take the need to pay for both of those things away, then employees and employers can both just focus on being productive and achieving what they want to achieve. Wait, all the people that produce the most will go to capitalism so they can get the most out of their work. But why would you abandon a company that is owned by workers in order to work at a private firm where your working conditions are comparatively worse, um, and a country where your basic needs aren't met, and the basic needs of your workers aren't met? Why would you? But there would still be bright. You realize bright minds like Elon Musk doesn't innovate, right? Like the engineers that work for Elon Musk innovate. The people who innovate are workers. They aren't like these luminaries at the top. The people who invented the iPhone weren't Steve Jobs. They were people Steve Jobs paid. So, actually, under a market socialist system, workers would be empowered to innovate more, not less. And actually, you can still start businesses under a market socialist system. Your business would just be a worker co-op so that you can't like just like sit back having like invested $100 and then like 50 years later you're like making $1 million doing nothing. No, if you work, you participate in the company in the worker co-op. You reap the benefits of working in the worker co-op and contributing to it. You need the Steve Jobs and Elon Musk to have those companies. No one will start businesses then. Well, that's where the government comes in. The government would come in with the ability to like loan out to companies or prospective worker co-op startups. There are solutions to all of these things that are not super complicated. The money goes whoosh, no incentive. I mean, you realize like the incentive for everyone who works at a worker co-op is for the company to succeed. Like, do you think do you think that like there is an incentive for like a clerk at a gas station in the middle of nowhere be bright and chipper to the people who come in, or do you think that they are just like a wage slave and it doesn't really matter to the overall company whether or not they are enjoying their work? Because like that's the current system we live under. Like there is no incentive. Wait, I'm gonna assume that V is a U. Do you understand that like you under you understand that like lazy people keep their jobs, right? Like you've never been in a job where like a lazy person was able to keep their job, or someone lacking in merit got promoted over you. Like that happens all the time. Like all the time. Yeah, it does. Merit, like capitalism is not a meritocracy, my dude. There are people who are born obscenely wealthy who have absolutely no experience and manage to just be at the top of companies, running companies they have no knowledge of, like the business they're in. So I want a utopia? No, there would still be problems in a market socialist society. I just want a society where people are able to live decently. Socialism has never worked and will never work. Well, young Jet, where has the socialism that I have described been implemented? Where have workers owned the means of production and goods been decommodified? Because like under market socialism, greed still operates as an incentive for luxury goods. No, the USSR was not a socialist state. It was an authoritarian state with a centrally planned economy that engaged in capitalism. It's really not hard to figure this out. Venezuela is also not a socialist state. The workers do not own the means of production, and their goods are not decommodified. No, they didn't. Then the government took over? No. Where are you getting your information from? Because it's bad and wrong. Like, incorrectly wrong. If you have the power to give wealth, you have the power to take it away. I mean, maybe. It depends. If it's never been implemented, how do you know it would work? Well, because my suggestions to achieve a system of market socialism are things that we currently have under capitalism, like worker co-ops. We have worker co-ops under capitalism, and all of the data we have on worker co-ops, worker-owned means of production, indicate that worker co-ops are more efficient and productive and generally more beneficial than traditional business firms. So, like, I'm basing my data, like, I'm basing my ideas on the facts we can observe. Will you jump if Trump wins? I don't know what that means, friend. Worker co-ops don't work for starting business. I mean, yeah, they do. You can go out and start a worker co-op right now. It's just not easy because not a lot of people do it. But we could incentivize people to do such a thing. Like that's very easily possible in a country where we give billions of dollars to oil companies for no reason. No creative person would do that. You're wrong. Actually, there are a lot of artistic co-ops that get together and innovate together, and or engineering co-ops. These things exist. Have you ever had a juice box? Juice boxes were invented by worker co-ops. Like, worker co-ops innovate. It's true. They do. Um, they would rather get all the money for starting on their own. Well, yeah, a lot of people would. That's why you need to implement incentives to start worker co-ops so that there's an incentive to invest in them. Like that That's part of the problem of capital. That's not necessarily the problem of worker co-ops. Like, if your argument is that we should kowtow to rich people so that rich people can make more money, like I just reject that idea. I think a much more beneficial thing would be having more efficient and productive worker co-ops that generate more benefit for our economy than giving subsidies to private businesses that don't generate as much of a benefit. Who owns juice boxes now? Well, I am not entirely sure what the current state of juice box patents are. I'm sorry, I don't have that information available to me at the moment. What incentive would there be what could be implemented that would work? Well, the same one that is implemented right now. They're like easing the process to getting business loans for worker co-ops. It's not super complicated. The issue is that right now, a lot of banks won't give business loans to worker co-ops because starting a worker co-op is difficult because it's not as common as starting a private business. We could we could go through the minimal amount of effort necessary to make starting worker co-ops easier and better, better funded or have more attractive loan terms, things like that. It's really it. There are all kinds of things we could do to make worker co-ops more attractive. One of the ideas proposed by Bernie Sanders, for example, would be that anytime a private business wants to sell to a competitor, for example, they instead have to put their business up for sale to their collective of workers to buy and turn into a worker co-op. I'm in favor of that idea. I think that's a really good idea, actually. Let me just preemptively ask who's going to pay for that. I mean, the U.S. taxpayer. Like, it's a business loan. Like, the loan would have to be paid back. And worker co-ops tend to be A, more successful startups, and B, better at lasting long term. So they're a better bet than investing in private companies. So it's actually kind of a no-brainer to ease the path towards making more worker co-ops. No Archangel DeCobb, no band member has ever been creative. Okay, no band has ever made art that these people care about. It's not like worker co-ops have been making video games for decades now. Yeah, I appreciate what you've said, but I want to stick with giving millions to oil companies with no return. Exactly. Like, we literally give millions of dollars to like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in subsidies to oil companies for no reason. And we get nothing in return, but somehow like easing the process of maybe starting up worker co-ops is too far, you know? Worker co-ops don't have incentive even if they get loans. Actually, there's tons of incentive in worker co-ops. Do you know right now what is the incentive in a traditional business to come up with a more efficient way of doing your work? What's the incentive? In a traditional business right now, if you come up with a more efficient way of doing your work, sure, you might get promoted, or they might just take that idea and make you work harder. So now you came up with an innovative idea, and now you're just working harder for the same amount of pay. That's a thing that happens to a lot of people in the course of doing their job. Here's an incentive for you, though. If you're part of a worker co-ops, one of the cool things about them is that workers get a say in how the profits of the company get used. So, at the end of the year, for example, if the company turns a profit, and the workers all get to vote on how that profit gets used. Does it get used to expand the company? Does it get used to pay the workers more? Does it get used to, for example, give workers less free time for the same amount of pay? These are all things that incentivize workers in worker co-ops, because that means that the effects of their labor that directly impact the amount of money the company makes um, is then returned to them instead of going to shareholders or like a CEO and a board of directors. Like, no, instead, everyone gets to share in the success of the company. In fact, by the way, Young, if our wages had kept track with productivity in the United States of America, do you know that right now the average yearly salary in the U.S. would be over $100,000? It's true. Economists have broken this down. So imagine working a job in which you could, instead of sending $60,000 of your check to some rich asshole who doesn't give a shit about you, um, you and your fellow workers could split the money more equitably and make around $100,000 a year. I think that's a pretty good trade-off, to be honest with you. And also, I think that trade-off is more attractive to the people you are attributing greed to. If greed was actually the incentive you think it is, people would want to live in the society I just described because it means tangible improvements to their lives. Actually, funny enough that you say that, Youth. Essentially, there is a worker co-op of worker co-ops. It's called the Mondragon Corporation. It's the largest worker co-op collective in the world, and it is a Spanish company, and it consists of a huge number of different industries collected underneath the umbrella of a worker co-op. And obviously, there are problems with it. It's been around for a very long time. Like, let me take a quick look here. The Corporation. It's been around since 1956. Um, yeah, they generate revenue of about 12.1 billion euros a year. Um, so yeah, they're kind of a big deal, you know. A lot of billions. Yeah, how much is that in real money though? Let me check that out. Okay, it'd be about that's about $14 billion a year for a worker co-op. Not too bad for a company that's been around for a good 70 years or so. Yeah, it would never work except that it works on large scales. It would never work except for the 81,000 people employed by this one worker cooperative. Uh, this has been a fun time. I've been enjoying this quite a bit. Thank you. Thank you for coming into chat, young Jit. I've appreciated this quite a bit.